Brandon Scoopy Robinson, NBA insider for Bally Sports. You can follow him on Twitter at Scoopy for all your latest NBA analysis, insight, and news, as well as some great, insightful thoughts and analysis over there as well. He joins us right now live from the Wells Fargo Center. My friend, how you doing today?
Man, I'm doing good. How you doing? Thanks for having me, brother.
I appreciate you jumping on, and it's a little disappointing. You don't have Embiid and Ja out there, but you get at least one of them. Joel Embiid, MVP candidate. Should he be the front runner?
Yes. As of now, no. I don't think there's anyone. So the answer to the question is yes. Right now, I don't think there's anybody who's matching his magnitude. The only person I can say is Ja Morant. I think that I have an East Coast bias, but I think what stands out to me about Joel is how he's doing it. I mean, he's playing in a situation where he is the LeBron James of his team. He is literally passing the ball, scoring the ball, rebounding the ball at a high clip, and more than anything else, he's doing it with a sense of humility, and I think he's won the fans over by his level of loyalty, what he's saying, how he's saying it. Tobias told me the other day, man, I want to get an alley-oop to him because he's passing all the basketballs.
When you look at Embiid, because you mentioned how he's doing everything, he himself said that he knew he had to take his game to another level. But is this really the peak for him? I mean, is there a possibility that there is more to be had from him? Because it's not like he's 32, 33 years old. He's still 27, 28.
I know that the late Notorious B.I.G. made a song called "The Sky's the Limit." In this case, I think that doesn't apply to Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid, to me, the best is yet to come. I think I talked to Carmelo Anthony when he was here Thursday, and he called Joel Embiid Hakeem Olajuwon-esque. And I think, and Doc Rivers, said that, Joel is more like a combination of Hakeem mixed with Patrick Ewing. And, I asked Joel Embiid what he thought, and he said, he watched Dirk Nowitzki, he watched, Kobe, he watched Hakeem, he watched Patrick. I think that last year he dealt with injuries. This season, he's the face and the leader of this team. And there's just a level of pizzazz and a level of swag that he has that to me is unmatched right now. I think he's focused, and, he's getting the appropriate rest that he needs tonight. And, they play Washington on Wednesday, and then they go on the road. I know they play Dallas and Chicago, but I think he's in a good headspace. I think his team is behind him, and he's got some help right now with, guys like Danny Green, Tobias Harris, as well as Tyrese Maxey, who, I expect Tyrese to have a big game tonight, as well as Steph Curry. So I definitely think that Joel Embiid is definitely has room to grow. I think he's the MVP, and he's doing his thing. So sky isn't the limit for him. I mean, the sky is. The clouds are.
Bally Sports NBA insider Brandon Scoopy Robinson joining us live from the Wells Fargo Center, where the Sixers are taking on the Grizzlies tonight. You can follow him on Twitter at Scoopy for all your NBA insight and analysis and news and more. You mentioned Tyrese Maxey. He's the guy to me that stands out so much this year because his growth from who he was last year to basically being thrust into this role and his evolution and growth within the role, I don't think anybody can say it's anything but extremely impressive.
Yeah, I asked him. I said to him, Ty, are you a point guard? He goes, I've been a point guard all my life. He said, I think the difference is my role. And when you look at his role, Ben Simmons isn't in that situation. And I think he's kind of picked up where Shake Milton has left off. I feel like he's in a situation where he's distributing the basketball. I think he's in a situation where he's scoring at will. He's finding his groove. And, he talked with me the other day about how, Sam Cassell, a three-time champion, has basically told him know when to score, know when to pass. And once you become that heady point guard that knows how to do both, you're unstoppable. And I definitely think that he's got a confidence, he's got a groove going, and I'm excited to see what he does this evening.
You mentioned Sam Cassell. Let's talk about for a moment the importance of who these coaches are to these players. Doc Rivers, Sam Cassell, Dan Burke, the defensive guy. There's a coaching staff here that I think that maybe if it was a different coaching staff, it'd be fair to say maybe these players wouldn't have the tools that have helped them get to the point where they are. Is that fair?
Well, it's very fair, and I can speak specifically to Sam. I've known Sam for over 20 years. Knew him when he was a player playing with the then New Jersey Nets, and I always knew back then that he would be a head coach because his attitude, his style, his flair, but his attention to detail definitely captures the room. He has the type of energy that the only person I think that can match that level of energy and just respect that he has is probably one in Gary Payton. And no wonder they were so successful in Milwaukee when they were teammates briefly in the early 2000s. But, I think this team definitely has a group of characters that know their role. They understood the assignment. And just pregame this evening, I sat down with a couple of the guys on the bench, and they were dialed in, paying attention to Jared Jackson Jr. on the floor, paying attention to Kyle Anderson on the floor, shooting around, and really detailing video and tape with players on that bench, and really just dialed in on what needs to be done this evening. This isn't a time to take off. This isn't a game that you really just look past because the Grizzlies are coming to swing, and the fact that Embiid is out, this is more motivation for them because they have John Morant, and talking to Taylor Jenkins pregame, we talked about his ties to UPenn, and I asked him about that classic Philadelphia "Clap Your Hands" song, and he said to me pregame, man, I remember going to UPenn and hearing that, kind of ingrained in my head. He told me he actually listened to the song this morning on his way to UPenn to get a cheesesteak. So I know that the Grizzlies think they're going to come in and sneak a win, but the Sixers coaching staff may have a thing or two to say about that, so we'll see what happens.
You can hear Sixers versus Grizzlies tonight at 7 p.m. right here on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, we're talking with Bally Sports NBA insider Brandon Scoop B. Robinson live from the center. He's up there for the Sixers-Grizzlies game. You can follow him on Twitter at Scoop B. Now, I can't have a conversation with you without mentioning the guy that you mentioned in passing earlier. The Ben Simmons stuff never dies, never goes away. As of right now, we're about a week and change away from the deadline. Do you believe Ben Simmons will be traded by the deadline, or do you think Daryl Morey will stick to his guns and hold out for an even better offer?
I saw Daryl on Thursday. He kind of ran from me, so I didn't get a solid answer. But what I'll tell you is the answer is I don't know. As I've told you throughout this process dating back to the summer, there are a list of teams that were having conversations. Most recently, the Sacramento Kings, who I shared with you, offered, or I said it, I reported it that the Sacramento Kings offered a package of De'Aaron Fox as well as Buddy Hield and some others for Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris. And for what I'm told, sources tell me that Daryl Morey has insisted that he doesn't want to trade Tobias Harris, and I know that Tobias Harris has been in trade conversations as it relates to Ben Simmons. But I think as the trade deadline looms, I think that teams like Minnesota, teams like Cleveland, and I think even the San Antonio Spurs will try to step up in their conversations. The Pacers as well. I've had conversations with a colleague that said the Sixers should have took that deal with the Pacers when they had it. But I really do think that Minnesota or Cleveland are two places that would be mutually beneficial.
It's been suggested by some that the Sixers are asking for too much for Ben Simmons when Morey comes out and says, we're looking for a top 30 to 40 talent. Do you think that's asking for too much, or do you think that's just all is fair in negotiations?
All is fair negotiations. You didn't become a top deal maker by trading peanuts for potato chips. So if you somehow find a way to trade a Honus Wagner baseball card for a Michael Jordan basketball card, I think Daryl Morey's going to try it.
You mentioned earlier about some of the teams that could be in the running. Is it one of those things where when you look around the league, is there something where so many teams, they know what they have, but maybe they're not ready to give up some of what they have?
Yes, it's negotiating. I mean, you think it from a perspective of if you're negotiating your salary with your employer. If you want top dollar for what you want, and they'll pretend that your value is lacking when you know that your value is top tier. I mean, that's just business. That's negotiating tactics. And I think that they're going to do whatever they need to do to get it done. And that's the tactics that they're choosing to use.
You mentioned earlier about Tobias Harris, and I want to bring him up real quick because to me, I think that the majority of people don't understand that Tobias's value, at least from my perspective, and you know even better than I do about this, Tobias's value is not as much on the court, but it's off the court. It's what he does in the locker room, how he helps the younger players. It's what he does as a locker room guy. You can't lose somebody who's a valuable locker room and a leader guy just for the sake of whatever kind of trade. Is that fair to assess?
That's fair. I think there's so many values that Tobias brings to the table that don't always get mustered up in a stat sheet. I spoke to Tobias the last few days, and one of the things that he shared with me is he's just going with the flow. But at the same time, he's being the flow. And I think that that's significant because, he's battled with this health issues. And even, aside from, when he was out for help to do this health and safety protocols, I mean, this is a guy that's, still or was up until a couple of days ago battling a cold and is still leading. And he did so in that Lakers game. I think his shooting is a need for that organization. And I also think that there's a reason why, Doc coached him in Los Angeles with the Clippers and found a way to bring him back to Philadelphia. He's a respected person in the locker room, and he really likes it in Philadelphia. So, he's definitely, in a situation where he's staying even keel, but it would be disappointing to see if he was traded from a perspective of just what he means to this organization because he's cool with so many guys on that team. And I also think that the other portion of it is he's literally a recipient of a lot of double-team kickouts from Joel Embiid where he's got the open shot. As is someone like Danny Green. And those guys go back as well, dating back to their days living on Long Island, New York. Their families are cool. They know each other well. And, I just hope that they find a way to keep them. And, we'll see what happens. The deadline is coming very soon.
Couple more before I let you go. I know you're a busy man, NBA insider with Bally Sports. Brandon Scoop B. Robinson joining us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. The entire 1 through 6 of the Eastern Conference is separated by a total of 2.5 games. In your mind, what is going to be the biggest factor, or the X factor, or the one element that's going to eventually separate those 6 teams, you believe?
What Chicago continues to do, as they'll continue to stay as consistent as they've been, because I really thought that Washington would be in that pack as well. But I think that, Chicago and their relationship and their chemistry, they've been around each other a lot longer, and Washington is figuring it out. I also think, what the Nets decide to do. I used this analogy the other day, and I'll share with you, because of what's going on with Kai and, as it relates to, him not playing in Brooklyn, he's literally a relief pitcher or a starting pitcher on days rest. And so if I'm Brooklyn, maybe you don't want the home court advantage. Maybe you want the 3rd, 4th seed so that you're able to, utilize him more, in away games. But I think ultimately as it relates to, that those top seeding, I really do think that Chicago's still going to be there. I think Philly's going to be there. I think Brooklyn is going to be there. I think Milwaukee will definitely be there. I think Milwaukee definitely started off, trying to get their rhythm in order, but they're doing their thing, man. And I think that it's exciting to see that there's not just, the popular of Brooklyn, Philly, Milwaukee. You see other teams, getting it together and doing what they need to do. So it's an exciting time in basketball, and we'll see what happens.
Final one before you. The team you're going to see today versus the Sixers is the Grizzlies. I love John Morant. I'm a huge fan of his. I will never back off of that. Are the Grizzlies the biggest threat to the top teams, the Suns and the Warriors in the West?
I think so, because they're not scared of anyone. I think that many people, or some people might have thought it would be Utah. I think Memphis has it, man. Memphis has got the juice. Not just the juice, they got the stain, because stain can stain the white shirt. That stain may not come out.
He's Brandon Scoop B. Robinson, NBA insider for Bally Sports. Follow him on Twitter at Scoop B. Also get the full Scoop B experience by following him also over on Instagram. My friend, I appreciate you jumping on. I know you're a busy man. Enjoy the game tonight.
I will, brother. Thank you for the opportunity to be myself.